Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. Myself Dr. Shivakumar, Assistant Professor, Department of Criminology, Honorable University. I am going to discuss about community-based crime reduction. So, introduction. Community means different things to different people in different contexts. For example, Charlie and colleagues 1997 said, refer to community as a location or place. Community may be a more abstract concept such as a neighborhood defined by sense of identity or shared history with boundaries that are more fluid and not necessarily identified exactly the same by all members. For some, community may be defined by common beliefs or ideologies. Example, religion or politics. By activity, example, swing, dancing or running. By social responsibility, by race or ethnicity, by social economic status or by a sense of belonging. Community is defined any group of people who share geographic space, interests, goals or history. A community offers a diversity of potential targets and prevention, and it's often conceived of as an encompassing, proximal and comprehensive structure that provides opportunities and resources that shape people's lifestyle. A community also offers the potential for pooling resources and for collaboration among community-based organizations, some of which are affiliates of state and national organizations that can channel resources to them is support of local initiatives and the evaluation of their innovations. The phrase community-based non-clinical prevention policy and wellness strategies appears in the statement of task. This phrase has been shortened for the purposes of this report to community-based prevention. Community-based prevention includes programs and policies that are aimed at preventioning the worst of disease, then stopping or slowing the progress of disease, or reducing or eliminating the negative consequences of disease. Next, increasing healthful behaviors that results in improvements in health and well-being, or decreasing disparities that result in an inequitable distribution of health. Community-based prevention is not primarily based on clinical services, although it may involve services provided by health professionals in clinical settings. The charge to the committee requested that special attention be given to the prevention of long-term chronic diseases, such as focus does not negate the fact the other community-based prevention efforts, such as those directed at the unintended and intended injuries and mental health, are also important areas for attention. The value of an intervention for the purpose of this report is defined as its benefits minus its harm and costs. There is an expanded discussion of the concept of value at the end of this chapter. And the community has been defined in a variety of ways. The committee uses the term community to mean any group of people who share geographic space, interests, goals, or history. It includes the built environment, social networks, and the organization and institutions that sustain the individual and collective life of the community. Chapter 2 contains an expanded discussion of the concept of community. A community-based prevention program is a coordinated activity or set of activities such as an educational campaign against smoking, improvements to the built environment to encourage physical activity, a chronic disease education and awareness campaign to improve self-management, or or a combination of such interventions that is intended to accomplish a health objective or outcome. A policy is a rule of set of guidelines such as nutritional standards for school lunches. An intervention is an umbrella term used to mean either a program or a policy with the goal or improving health. A strategy is the method through which program are implemented, such as television advertisement warning of the dangers of smoking, construction of bike path, or conducting disease management workshops in crutches. A distinction can be made between community-based prevention and community-based placed prevention, or community interventions versus interventions in communities, although both take a population-based approach. An example of this type of prevention effort is community-based participatory research, in which academic researchers who are usually in control of the decisions on the research question, design, methods, and interpretation of results invite or considered at least an equal partner role to community members in formulating, conducting, and interpreting the research. An example of the community-based approach is the YMCA diabetes prevention program that is being implemented in partnership with YMCAs across the country. Some with more tailoring to localities than others. Although there are distinct differences between these two approaches to prevention, for purpose of this report by key domains for valuing are common to both approaches. Therefore, the term community-based prevention is used to encompasses of community-placed and community-based prevention programs, policies, and strategies. Why is community-based prevention important? Early health program effort emphasized meeting basic human needs for clean water, adequate nutrition, and shelter. In 1900, a third of all deaths in the United States were due to pneumonia, tuberculosis, entries, and diphtheria. Children suffered high rates of morbidity and mortality, with 40% of deaths from those four causes occurring among children under 5, and children under 5 accounting for a third of all deaths from all causes. Over the past century, major strides were made in improving the health of the public through population level efforts that were implemented in individual communities. The reduction in premature mortality from TB brought about by community-based prevention is a dramatic example. In 1900, mortality rates from TB were 194%, 100,000. By 1940, before antibiotic for TB were available, the rate had dropped to 46 deaths for every 100,000 people living in the United States. The decreases was due to community level infection control measures instituted by local health departments, combined with improvements in housing, including reducing the level of crowding and better nutrition. In 1999, large scale public health initiatives such as public sewer projects, children project, chlorination of public water supplies, and food safety requirements greatly reduced the exposure of the public to infections organisms and reduced the incident of such diseases as cholera, typhus, and TB. Impact of community-based prevention. As discussed earlier, community-based prevention can involve complex system of coordinated action which include numerous actors, many acting in concert through organizational partnership and correlations. Ideally, the partnership include intersectoral collaboration between health organizations and their public sector counterparts in education, social services and city planning, as well as private sector business interests that influence the diets, physical activity, tobacco consumption and other behavior of the public that affect health. Evaluation seeks to determine the effectiveness of these efforts. It poses many methodological and practical problems because of the complex and systematic nature of community-based prevention. Key features of the program were a carefully outlined theoretical framework, community involvements, a flexible and dynamic interventions adapting to naturally occurring events, a multi-phased intervention including innovate, media campaigns, health care providers, environmental changes and industry and policy changes, and strong leadership and institutional support. The North Karelia project inspired effort sponsored by the National Institutes of Health to implement and evaluate similar community interventions is California with the Stanford 3 community based and the Stanford 5 community studies. In a series of commentaries and editorials published following the release of disappointing results, leading epidemiologists acknowledged the limitations of the controlled experiment to assess the value of such interventions on a community scale. According to Foreman, successful crime prevention strategies must address factors contributing to the large number of crimes that are committed by individuals who have served a term of incarceration and filed upon their release, to integrate the community as law-abiding citizens. In the absence of material, psychological and social support at the time of their release, offenders may have a very difficult time breaking the cycle of release and rearrest, short-term prison terms and extended terms of remand in custody. Provide limited opportunities for successful treatment and interventions to prevent future recidivism. A majority of convicted the offenders have at least one prior conviction, either in youth or adult court, and among recidivists nearly one-third have a prior conviction and nearly 75% have multiple prior convictions. Community safety makes it imperative that governments and community developments effective interventions that will assist ex-prisoners to successfully reintegrate in the community and avoid further community. Managed offender re-enter processes and programs are gaining acceptance and may offer a cost-effective way of preventing crime. There is therefore an increasing focus among policymakers and practitioners on identifying programs and strategies that will help to prisoners successfully reintegrate back into their communities without re-offending. Community-based prevention interventions offer three distinct strengths. First, because the intervention is implemented population wide, it is inclusive and not dependent on access to the health care system. Second, by directing strategies at on entire population, and intervention can reach individuals at all levels of risk. And finally, some lifestyle and behavioral risk factors are shaped by conditions not under an individual's control. For example, encouraging an individual to eat healthy food when none is accessible undermines the potential for successful behavior change. Community-based prevention interventions can be designed to affect environmental and social conditions that are out of reach the clinical services. The four foundations, the California Endowment, the Beyond Foundation, the Robert Wood Johnson's Foundation, and W.K. Kellogg Foundations asked the Institute of Medicine to the convince an expert committee to develop a framework for assessing the value of community. Assessing the value of community-based non-clinical prevention policies and wellness strategies, especially these targeting the prevention of long-term chronic diseases. The charge to the committee was further defined as follows: define community-based non-clinical prevention policy and wellness strategies. Define value for community-based non-clinical prevention policy and wellness strategies. Analyze current frameworks used to assess the value of community-based non-clinical prevention policies and wellness strategies, including the methodologies and measures and the short and long-term impacts of such prevention policy and wellness strategies on communities, including healthcare spending and public health. If warranted purposes, a new framework or frameworks that capture the breadth and complexity of community-based non-clinical prevention policies and wellness strategies, including interventions that target specific behavior and health outcomes. Community-based crime reduction strategies. Currently, there are a number of community-based initiatives designed that attempt to reduce crime and reoffending, as well as to build community capacities to address problems of crime and social disorder while providing rehabilitation and reintegration assistance to offenders. Perhaps the most comprehensive of these is the crime reduction strategy that was implemented in Surrey, British Columbia in 2006 and is being replicated in a number of other communities. Among the distinguishing features of strategy is the involvement of a broad range of stakeholders and a multifaceted approaches to crime and offenders. The Survey British Columbia Crime Reduction Strategy footnote: this initiative is a comprehensive crime reduction strategy that involves all key stakeholders, including the RCMP, non-profit organizations, community corrections, the school board, the board of trade and community groups. The plan was developed through the Mayor's Task Force on Public Safety and Crime Reduction. There are 4 components to the strategy, each of which contains a number of specific initiatives. Prevention and deterrence of crime includes Sky Train and transit safety, education and awareness programs, community drug action teams, crime-free multi-housing and youth intervention programs, among others. Addressing the perception and reality crimes. Development of a communications strategy. Creation of community action groups working with seniors and other community support teams, among others. The increasing involvement of community in responding to the challenges presented by ex-offenders has led to a greater focus on local involvement in and ownership of initiatives. Efforts to strengthen the leadership skills and capacity of the community to be an active partner in prevention and reintegration and the development of substantive partnership with the community. Concurrent with this has been the recognition that there is a need for a more flexible approach to evaluation and assessment of the outcomes of programs. There is no census as to whether ex-offender re-entry support programs are effective in assisting reintegration and reducing the rates of recidivism. To date, there have been a few evaluations of existing programs. Many of the current initiatives were developed on the basis of somewhat conflicting program evaluation finding in related correctional areas. Impact of drug treatment, employment training, counseling and community supervisions. While there is an abundance of ideas as to what in theory should work, the findings of program evaluations are often disconnecting. While there is an abundance of ideas as to what in theory should work. The finding of program evaluations are often disconcerting. Further, the majority of reintegration programs have not been subjected to controlled evaluation, and successful approaches remain to be identified and articulated. Often, research and practice seems to move on separate tracks. As the following review will reveal, there is some evidence that positive reintegration outcomes are attained when factors predisposed or attending when factors predisposing a person to criminal behavior are addressed in a holistic fashion, and when the physical and social need of offenders are supported both within the prison and after the offenders. As the following review will reveal, there is some evidence that positive reintegration outcomes and attained when factors predisposing a person to criminal behavior are addressed in a holistic fashion, and when the physical and social needs of offenders are supported both within the prison and after the offender's release. Nevertheless, facilitating offender reintegration is a complex task, and the impact of specific interventions is often difficult to measure. The crime prevention goal of these programs is measured in terms of offenders' recidivism, a measure that is in itself problematic. Estimating recidivism rates is influenced by how and when re-offending is measured. As well, recidivism may be measured at different points of a known offender's contacts with the criminal justice system. Risk factors. The primary criminogenic needs must be addressed by institutional and community-based treatment services or related to education, employment, accommodations, drug and alcohol, mental health, social networks, cognitive skill and attitudes. These risk factors are dynamic, meaning they are amenable to change, whereas other risk factors are not. Program evaluations in the UK have identified a number of interventions that reduce risk factors. These include preschool education, family literacy, parenting information and supporting, reasoning and social skill education, organizational change in schools and responding schemes. The treatment programs vary in efficacy, and none or completely effective interventions can fail to achieve their objectives because not all offenders are immediately amenable to treatment. A lack of willingness to accept responsibility or a poor motivation to change can make a big difference. Among the obstacles to youth engagement in education, training and employment are high levels of non-participation by youth, a lack of knowledge of the issues among professionals and conflicting objectives and target among programs. Those offenders who complete treatment programs have higher rates of success in terms of their successful reintegration. Factors associated with the treatment completion include more years of education, not having a history of sexual victimization, fewer previous incarcerations, lower level of minimization or injustification of the offending behavior. Goals and attributes of offender re-entry programs. Re-entry programs are often based on a case management approach and cover a range of interventions. These interventions are designed to assist offenders in preparing for their release from confinement by helping them acquire the skill sets required to succeed in the community. Addressing personal challenges and the factors associated with their criminal behavior and establishing the necessary contacts and relationship in the community. Many, if not most, of these programs include some of the form of supervision. Programs are typically developed on the basis of current understanding of the dynamic risk factors associated with recidivism, the typical needs of offenders and the challenges they encounter upon their release from prison. Programs vary according to the recidivism risk factors and the type of social integration challenges they are designed to address. Many programs focus on specific challenges confronting offenders such as addicting, drug abuse or unemployment, and many offender integration programs have been designed to deal with specific categories of offenders such as chronic offenders, drug addicted offenders, young offenders, mentally ill offenders or dangerous sexual offenders. Traditionally, one could identify three main types of offenders reintegration programs. One is institution based programs, surveillance based transition programs, assistance based transition programs. We will review each one of these briefly, as none of these types of interventions in themselves seems to produce satisfactory results in terms of reducing future recidivism. This will serve as in an introduction to a brief presentation of some of the most promising forms of interventions designed thus far. Integrated and thorough care programs for offender reintegration. Institutional programs designed to prepare offenders to re-enter society can include education, mental health care, substance abuse treatment, job training, counseling and monitoring. Some of these programs of offender prior to released by community-based agencies which are equipped to provide aftercare and follow-up with the offenders following their release from confinement. Effective institutional programs tends to focus on a number of dynamic risk factors and offenders' challenges or needs to that require attention in order to prepare the offender for release and successful reintegration. As these programs are voluntarily, a large number of offenders do not participate and are subsequently released into a community without any pre-release preparation. Effective readiness for release, however, is difficult to assess. Some institutionally based drug treatment programs delivered by the Correctional Service of Canada appear to have a significant impact on the rate of recidivism. Following release, particularly those that are followed by assistance and support during the aftercare period. Participants who complete the substances abuse program have higher rates of recidivism decreased up by the 50%. Conclusion: many practitioners in the treatment and social reintegration fields acknowledge that reintegration support intervention should link institutional services with community-based services. There is, however, little evidence that interventions that merely refer offenders to community-based service effectively assist in the reintegration process. Providing referral rather than substantive aftercare is generally ineffective. Rather, there must be a linkages between institutional programming and community-based interventions to ensure continuity of support. There is a conscious manner. Some of the available empirical evidence on the effectiveness of programs and interventions that are designed to reduce recidivism by facilitating the successful reintegration of offenders into the community after a term of incarceration. It identities practices and programs that appear to hold promise for effective social reintegration of offenders and the reduction of recidivism. Thank you.